Hey everybody, this is a really special episode of the Case to Case podcast, and that's because I'm being joined by Elaine Hatfield. She is the mother of once missing child, teenager, Dylan Redwine. Dylan was missing as of November 19th, 2012, but his remains were found several months later, and over the course of his disappearance, a lot of negativity and drama played out via the media, to the point that even Dr. Phil had both the mother and the father of this missing child on his show. Dylan was only 13 years old when he vanished. Right now, he'd be 16. In these vital years that he's been missing, he would have grown from a child to nearly an adult. And that's why now we're going to have a live interview with Elaine, his mother. I'm answering a call right now. You're on the air with Case to Case. Is this you, Elaine?
Yes.
Hi, how are you doing tonight?
I'm okay. How are you?
Doing okay considering the circumstances. It's been a pretty interesting week, to say the least.
Yeah. The last couple of years have been pretty interesting to me.
And everyone sympathizes with you, and I'm sure you can tell that most people are on your side in this situation. Yeah. Before we begin...
Anybody who's followed the case and has any common sense, it's not difficult.
Absolutely. It's common sense. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get into the interview, I want to let the listeners know Mark Redwine, Dylan's father, he didn't want this podcast to take place. He's made a couple attempts to... I don't want to say he's made blatant attempts at stopping the podcast from taking place, but he sent me a couple emails, and he even called me and left a voicemail that was kind of rude and rambling and hard to understand. So I want to get into these emails real quick. First, he said, "Miss Hoffman, it's come to my attention my former wife continues to blame me for the death of my son. As I'm disappointed in the lack of progress made in understanding his cause of death, there's been no evidence to support a crime has ever been committed. There are many things my former wife continues to be less than honest about. The question that haunts me is, how can a mother hate her husband more than she has ever loved her children? Some believe that you, speaking to me, are a sympathizer of Elaine and not at all interested in Dylan or the truth. Regardless, there is much you don't seem to know about Elaine. And personally, I don't feel the need to convince you otherwise publicly. I'm asking you to respect Dylan and remember the loving, caring, and compassionate person he will always be to those who loved him. Mark Redwine." What is your response to that, Elaine?
It's typical Mark. It does not surprise me at all. He's in deflection mode. He wants to make it all go away, and there's many things I could say. He's always had the blame shifting personality. He never takes responsibility upon himself. The fact is that law enforcement has very blatantly said that this is a crime. A crime has been committed. Dylan didn't go up on the Middle Mountain by himself. If Dylan would have gone up to Middle Mountain by himself and nobody would have known he was out there, we wouldn't have only found a small percentage of his remains. Somebody went up there and took the other part of his remains. There's one person that knew he was up there. There's one person that put him up there, and that is Mark.
Okay. Thank you for that response. And I have to say that reading that first email that came from him, which he sent 9 days ago, it seems that right out the door, he just wanted to smear you. And at the time, trying to say that you hate him more than you love your own children. And I can understand the animosity between you two, but it seems that, like you said, he is in deflection mode. He's trying so hard to take the pressure and the attention off of him.
Yeah. Well, and it still bothers me that he still calls me my husband. He's not my husband. He hasn't been my husband for many years.
Yeah, that is a little bit curious.
Yeah, and my name is Elaine. I'm not his former wife. If you want to get technical, I'm his ex-wife on purpose.
Right. Absolutely. I just got a new email from him, and I haven't had a chance to read it to you yet. And I'm gonna read it right now. It's a long email, and because I sent him an email back saying, and I sent him this a day ago. I said, Mark, I was wanting to know if you had gotten my last email, and I said also, I'd like to know personally what you think happened to Dylan. How do you think this happened? And I'm just trying to piece together both sides here. And I told him I really wanted to hear his side. And he responded, Miss Hoffman, as for what I think may have happened to my son, it's a difficult question to answer. Like most, I do have a theory, but no evidence to prove it. What I do know is Elaine has not been truthful about so many things. Dylan has always been very close to me. I raised Dylan for the first 5 years of his life, he says. He and I shared a very special bond and went every minute we could together. It's true that like many fathers today, work kept me away. Every time I came home, it was to spend time with Dylan. He was with me from the time I arrived to the time I had to return. I tell you this because he never showed any signs of being close to his mother. Although he never complained about her, and he put in parentheses, just the men she was seeing, Dylan did hint that he was neglected by her. Although Dylan never gave me any reason to run away, with the passage of time I had come to understand the conflict between mom and dad weighed heavy on his heart. Mostly, I believe, had Elaine been honest with law enforcement in the beginning, their investigation would have been conducted in a much different and more diligent manner. And he concludes his email with this. Dylan was and still is my life. He means everything to me. The most important thing to me is finding his remains and laying him to rest. Dylan has always been a very loving and caring person. Dylan was the light of my life, and my life was Dylan. I don't know if I'll ever get over his loss. From where I sit, what I see in his mother isn't justice for Dylan. It's justice for Elaine. It's hard for me to understand with no evidence how she can accuse me of hurting my son. I question how she seems to know more than anyone else. I can't prove it, but she is involved. I know she's capable of being involved. And that's how he ended the email.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the same rhetoric he continues to spill over. Law enforcement has obviously taken the steps they need to take. They obviously have a lot of evidence. You know, naming him not a suspect does not mean that they have decided he's not a suspect. It's in their mind. Well, I can't really even speak for what they're thinking, but I know the evidence that's out there, and I speak to law enforcement on a very consistent basis. You know, when is the last time he's ever called law enforcement and asked what has happened to my son? When is the last time he said, Elaine is a part of this, you know, investigate her further? They don't investigate me because they know that I'm not a part of this. The facts show it. And so his words and the words he spews, trying to put the fault back on me, is just another part of, you know, the deflection that he's engaging in to take the heat off of him. He doesn't like any of these public appearances or any of this exposure, because every time he speaks, his words get twisted and tangled, and it points closer and closer to him.
You're absolutely right. I agree with you 100% on that. And I've noticed that in his interviews, and I've watched a couple of them recently just to get refreshed on his mannerisms. And I've said it before, but he has almost a theatrical way about him, the way he speaks, and he seems so deliberate, as if he's rehearsed every line.
Uh-huh.
And I find that shocking, because when you see him, he doesn't look like he's smart enough to get away with something like this, but yet when he speaks, he absolutely seems like he is intelligent and cunning enough to have gotten away with some kind of crime.
He hasn't gotten away with anything. He thinks he has, but he has not gotten away with anything.
Well, I have a question, actually, about the investigation. When was the last time you've spoken to any of the detectives on this case?
A couple days ago.
A couple days ago, and are you able to share any update at all?
I'm a little leery, especially after those emails. Am I on air right now? Let me just ask you that.
Yeah, we're live.
Oh, okay, I wasn't sure. Sorry. I'm a little reluctant to, bring up some of the conversations that I've had with investigators, but I am on a, consistent basis in speaking with them, and they're very good about keeping me involved. I ask the questions I need to have answered to try and make this move forward. It's my son would have turned 16 years old on February 6th, and it's not fair to him or to all the other people supporting me and him through all this to just let this sleeping dog lie. It's time to shake it up, and it's time to make Mark be accountable for his actions. I mean, the fact that he never once, ever, even apologized for the fact that Dylan went missing while Dylan was with him. If that would have been me, Mark would have been all over my ass, and he would have made sure that everybody knew what a horrible mother I was, because now we can't find my missing child under my watch, and now he's deceased, and he expects me to just roll over and say, it's okay. No. Well, I know he did this. I know he had a hand in this, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to make sure that this is a solved case.
And you have a lot of people behind you and a lot of people supporting you. And that leads me to my next question. Let's talk about your push to have him arrested. You say that he's moved everything out of the home where Dylan vanished. And I want to know, has he disposed of the home's contents or relocated them in any way?
I'm not exactly sure of the specifics, but I do have a lot of people, who always have my back in La Plata County. I know that when the thrift store, if you will, in Durango came and picked up a lot of his belongings, friends of mine let me know that Dylan's bike, his first or second bike, were at the thrift store, and they went and picked it up for me. Oh, wow. I also know that law enforcement came and picked up a lot of his belongings. So, there's a lot of his belongings that are still confiscated, if you will, by the sheriff's department that he has not gotten back.
Wow, that's actually interesting to know. So it had been given to Goodwill, basically, and then thankfully retrieved.
Right. Law enforcement got what they wanted prior to Goodwill coming, and then after that, I believe. I mean, I'm not sure exactly at the sequence of events, but yeah, essentially it worked out that way.
And you say that you've spoken with the detectives and that they're on top of everything with you, and like I said, you don't have to tell any of the private details, because this is an important investigation, and whatever it takes to get justice served to Dylan is whatever it's going to take. What I want to know... Oh, somebody's messaging me from Arizona. Someone said, it's not a matter of people supporting Elaine. People are supporting Dylan. I just wanted to say that. Whoever you are...
I agree.
Yes, thank you. Elaine says she agrees. I agree. At the end of the day, this is all about supporting Dylan. And Mark believes that it's a Elaine versus Mark thing. And that's where he's so mistaken.
He's always felt that way. I mean, when we got divorced, this was not about my hatred, or I didn't even hate him until he killed Dylan. I wanted what was best for my children, both of my children. And it's funny how he mentions Dylan throughout all this. He has another son. Corey is his son too. Where is Corey's name mentioned?
He seems to, like the Dr. Phil episode that you guys done, he just thinks that you've turned him completely against him, which I don't see that at all. I see that Corey has a mind of his own. And,
he does. He always has.
And he has questions, and his father's not answering them.
And it's the same thing everything that he said about his first ex-wife, Betsy, who, they had custody disputes as well, and Mark would throw up, father alienation, and he blamed everything on her, and it's always everybody else's fault. It's never Mark's fault. Well, you know what? This time, it is Mark's fault, and we will prove it is Mark's fault. He killed Dylan, and we will prove it.
What I want to know, and this is going to kind of rehash old information, had Mark ever made threats in the past, back when you were together, or when you were fighting, or in any time in the past? Did he ever threaten to hurt his children? Did he ever indicate that he would do such a thing?
No, he didn't. I mean, I have a lot of horrible things that I can say about Mark, but I would never have put Dylan on that plane if for 1 second I thought that I would never see my son again. That would never have happened. Mark had taken the boys away from me before when he didn't like the way I was acting, if you will, but I never thought that he could do this to his own children. And in retrospect, I wish I would have done things differently. I wish I would never have put that Dylan on the plane, of course. I mean, I wish that every day. But I can't change that. I had to do what the courts told me to do, or else I would have faced jail time. And I was worried that if that would have happened, then he would have got custody. And that would not have been in the best interest of Dylan either.
You're absolutely right.
And Dylan did not want that. Dylan did not want that. Dylan loved his life with me. He did not want to live with his father, despite all the assumptions Mark makes. I talked to Dylan every single day. He did not want to live with Mark. The judge agreed with that when the judge had a private hearing with Dylan. He agreed with that, which is why I got custody. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Chelsea.
Oh, no, this is what you have to say is what's most important, because this is about justice for Dylan. I'm getting more comments out of Arizona. It's an anonymous person says, Mark wants to win. Life is a game to him, win or lose.
It's true. And Dylan was a possession to him, as all his kids were. He didn't look at them as living human beings, breathing human beings. He looked at them as things that he owned, that things he could control. And the minute he stopped controlling Dylan is when all hell broke loose, because Dylan started speaking for himself. Dylan started telling Mark how he felt, and Mark didn't like that. And Mark knew that, this was going to be a hard battle to win.
Someone named Lisa is asking about Vallecito residents would like to know what the police are doing to find the murderer, if it's not Mark. I think that the point of the show right now, I think we're all pretty much convinced that there's not somebody out there that have randomly did this to Dylan.
I agree, and I've said that from day one, basically. From day one, when Mark could not talk to me, he could not talk to Corey, he would not talk to law enforcement. Friends of ours went over there to ask him about Dylan, and he told them to let law enforcement do their job. I was pretty much convinced that, in the beginning I was hopeful that he had just hidden Dylan from me, as he had done in the past. Not just Dylan, but both him and Corey. But when I was on Dr. Phil, it was pretty evident that, Dylan was no longer alive.
And I'm so very sorry for that. We've all been really sympathetic for you. You've got so many people supporting you in this entire country, not just Colorado, but nationwide.
Oh, no. Australia. I mean, it's amazing. You know what? They're not supporting me, though. They are supporting the cause for Dill.
Exactly.
And that's an important distinction to make. While I've come to know them, maybe not even personally, but over the internet, that Dylan brought all of these people out, and he was always very protective of me, and now I look at all the people that he's brought to help me through this, and he's still looking out for me. It's pretty touching.
someone just said, we are already saving our vacation days so we can sit in court every day and watch him get prosecuted, Elaine.
Yeah, I've heard that from more than one person.
What I really want to know is when the Dr. Phil show, when you guys were on that, at the time before the show, you had not even spoken to each other because he had blocked you from texting him. He wouldn't answer your calls. I want to know, since that appearance, have you guys spoken at all?
I've texted him. I'm still blocked, I believe, or he doesn't respond. I don't know. The only time he emails me is about money, but he never emails me about anything other than that. He never mentions Dylan. Never mentioned the fact that Dylan would have turned 16. I've seen great examples of grieving parents. For instance, Kelsey Schelling's parents, when I was just at the walk a couple weekends ago. Not only is Kelsey's mother there, but her ex-husband and her current husband are there supporting each other because her family is innocent. They didn't have anything to do with Kelsey's disappearance. And that's evident in how they all stand strong.
Absolutely.
If Mark had nothing, and I knew he had nothing to do with Dylan's death, we would have been, irrespective of our differences in the past, I know that we would have been able to come together. The reason Mark is hiding and the reason Mark is blaming me is because he knows everything. He knows everything that happened. And that's the only way that he can deflect it from himself. In his mind, because it's not working in real life. It's not working in reality.
And what was that thing that happened not too long ago where he was hospitalized?
I'm not sure the specifics of it other than he had guns and ammunition and he was taken in on a psychiatric review by the Denver police.
Wow.
It's because his guilt is getting the best of him.
Yeah, it sounds like he's going off the deep end.
Yeah, he's been going off the deep end for a while, and that was another issue, Dylan found some pretty disgusting, horrible pictures that you should never find of your parent. And Mark knew Dylan had found these pictures. And, everybody wants to, run them under the carpet and pretend they didn't happen, but they did. And Dylan saw it and Corey saw it. And from that moment on, it was very difficult for Dylan to trust him. He tolerated him, but he didn't trust him.
Do you mind clarifying on what you mean by pictures? Like, if it's too much for you to talk about, I understand, but do you mind clarifying?
Well, there were pictures of him, dressed in very, inappropriate ways for my son to see, and he was eating feces, and it was just a very inappropriate picture for, at that time, Dylan was 11, 12 maybe. Very inappropriate pictures.
Oh my goodness.
For any child to see. Corey was even older, and it was inappropriate for Corey to see those pictures.
I'm 31, and I don't want to see those pictures.
Exactly. If you're going to have that stuff on your laptop, don't let your children use your laptop, or delete them or something. Oh my goodness! It was devastating for both of them, and they were very, very embarrassed.
Oh my
very
goodness!
Embarrassed.
Do you think that? Let's talk hypothetically for a second here. Do you think that anything similar to that could have happened the last night that Dylan was alive?
I think that Dylan may have brought those up, or Dylan may have, Dylan had his own voice. He was, he may have been 13 years old, but he was a very mature 13-year-old. And he spoke very eloquently. He didn't mince words. And when he was very sensitive, but he also, he took responsibility for his actions, and he wanted you to take responsibility for your actions. So it doesn't surprise me at all, that he may have said something that just did not sit well with Mark, and Mark reacted, and in a very violent way, obviously, because Dylan is no longer here. Dylan was not heard from after that night.
Yeah, everything stopped at around between 9 and 9:30 that night, right?
Yeah, yes, it was, It was around then, yes.
And that is early for anybody at that age, especially when you're their first night in a house that's not your normal house. So I don't believe that he went to sleep at that time. It doesn't seem logical to me.
He definitely did not go to sleep at that time. I mean, Dylan was just like me, a late owl, and he even on school nights, I used to have to, and he was older, but I used to rub his back every night, and that would help him go to sleep, because it was very difficult for him to go to sleep just because you said go to sleep. And especially when he was on Thanksgiving break and he was so excited to see his friends, I know for a fact he was not sleeping at that point. I believe he was already dead.
And I hate to agree with you, but I do agree with you, because the time frame, he claims that he went and did errands and yada, 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 came and took a nap, and then he started looking for Dylan. And to me...
No one heard from Dylan that morning, and that is not like Dylan. See, and that's the thing that is just so contradictory to what Mark states, because he didn't know Dylan. The first 5 years of Dylan's life, he may have tried to be, a person who stayed at home and watched Dylan. He was horrible at it, and then eventually he went and got his CDL, because, it was fights among us all the time because of his lack of attention to Dylan. And neighbors calling me about Dylan, being unsupervised out in the front yard all the time. And Dylan was maybe 1 or 2 years old. And it wasn't the first 5 years of his life anyway. But in any event, when he says Dylan was watching Nickelodeon, Dylan hadn't watched Nickelodeon in a couple of years. I mean, he was on to the MTV, that kind of show. I can't even think of it. Big Ralph or whatever, Big Dad and Ralph or what. I can't even think of what the name was. But all of the actions that he, even in the first couple days, all of the actions that he said Dylan did were not Dylan. Not Dylan at age 13. He had no idea who Dylan was.
It sounds like you're right. It sounds like he's just making a bunch of excuses. He wants to make this all about how you're just going after him. He's a victim. All of us are the bad guys. Leave Mark alone. He just wants this to go away, basically, is how he's talking.
Exactly.
But it's not going to go away. It will never go away.
It's not going to go away. No. You have my word on that. I will die. I will die trying. And hopefully I'll live to see justice occur. I'm sure I will, because I'm a pretty strong woman, and this has made me a lot stronger. And I'm tired of just sitting back and waiting for law enforcement to do what they think they need to do. It's time to, wake up the troops and, start doing what we need to do for Dylan. And not that we haven't been doing that. It's just that I've been a little more cautious and a little more subtle, because I have been trusting and I have been relying on law enforcement, and not that I'm not now, but passing my son's 16th birthday and a number of other events have really inspired me to start fighting again, to sit up and stand up and start screaming justice for Dylan, because something needs to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I need to know why.
And I agree. And that leads me to my next question. Have you considered maybe getting a petition around to petition the authorities in the area to either shit or get off the pot. I mean, pardon my language, but basically to hurry up.
Yeah, there's a couple things that are happening over the next, few months, and, there's a lot of decisions that we have to make as a family, and, there's a lot of conversations that we have to have, but, this year, the heat is going to be turned up.
And that's a good idea, and I'm all for turning the heat up, and I will be here every step of the way, making sure that it's reported on and letting everybody know what's going on.
I appreciate that, Chelsea. I really do. We've got to get, we've got to get his name and his face and his story back out there. Not that it hasn't been, but after time, things dissipate and people stop thinking about it and stop remembering. And it's our job. He can't speak for himself, so it's our job to do that for him.
We're not going to let anybody forget about Dylan.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
Before I end this interview, I want to ask you if, I'm sure Mark is listening right now, or he will be, and I want to know if there's anything you have to say to him right now.
There's many things I'd like to say to him, but not, they wouldn't be constructive. All I want him to know is that this is not going away. He cannot sweep this under the rug. Things are happening, and irrespective of what he thinks, he is the main person that is being watched and has been. And it's not going to change until Dylan gets justice. So, if he really truly loved Dylan as much as he says he does, then tell us where Dylan's remains are, Mark, because you're the only one who knows where they are.
Thank you so much, Elaine, for calling tonight.
Thank you, Chelsea. I appreciate your time.
And have a good night. And just know that we're all behind you and we're all behind Dylan on this.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody else, for supporting me and Dylan and our family.
Okay, everybody. We have a little bit of time left in the show. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, I'm going to give everyone just a few minutes of time if you want to call in. The phone number to call in, again, is 702-723-6541. There's a little bit of time left, so if any of you guys want to call in, if you have a question or a comment, the lines are open. So I'll be right back. Hey everybody, I'm back. I got a caller from Colorado, and she's going to introduce herself. Introduce yourself, caller.
Hi, this is Lisa up in Vallecito Lake, and I'm calling just to make a couple comments. Being up here and watching this happen over the course of these last couple years, and hearing the police initially telling everybody up here not to be concerned, not to be worried. Don't worry about your kids. Don't worry about your kids walking down the street, going to a bus stop. It's okay. Then they find Dylan's remains up on the mountain, and they call it a crime. And now we hear nothing. So is the message to be sent, you can kill your kid in La Plata County as long as it's in Vallecito Lake? Or if it was in Durango, that would be a problem. So, people up here in Vallecito Lake are concerned, and I think the message is a bad one. And I think the police either need to, A, engage and keep going with this case, or B, disengage so his family can file a lawsuit for all the way it was handled, period. And that's my comment.
You know what? I think you made a very astute comment, and I agree with you wholeheartedly. The police either need to, like you said, engage. They need to get out there and do their jobs, and do it thoroughly, of course. Don't do it sloppily. or they need to step aside and let some actual able-bodied investigation teams to come in and do this.
Right, because it's not okay to kill your kid and put him on a mountain and let him rot.
Absolutely not.
But that's the message that's being delivered by the police in action on this 2 years later. So it's just unacceptable. And we will, and love always wins. Elaine knows that, and we were behind her and that family all the way. We will be in court while he gets prosecuted also.
I think we all will. We all stand in solidarity with Dylan and Elaine and Corey and the rest of their family.
All right. Chelsea, thanks so much.
Thank you for calling.
All right, take care. Bye.
All right. Like I said, there's enough time for a few more calls if any of you guys are interested. The number is 702-723-6541. The music's going to be playing for a few minutes until I get some calls in, and if I don't get any more calls in the next few minutes, then I'm going to end the show. I did invite Mark Redwine to call the show. Like I said, he called me last night and left a message, but I didn't really hear it. Oh, I'm getting a call right now. Hold on, let me answer it. You're on the air with Chelsea. Who's calling?
Yeah, it's Rodney Britton.
Hi, Rodney. How are you doing?
Hey, let me turn this off for a second. Hey, I just want to let Mark know.
You want to let Mark know what? Did I lose you? And I lost you. Next call. You're on the air with Chelsea. Who's calling?
Hi, this is Deborah.
Hi, how you doing? Do you have a comment?
Am I on?
Yes, you're on the air.
Okay, apologize. I heard a guy and I wasn't sure. Just, been following this case quite a bit and just kind of shocked about how Dr. Phil hasn't been involved to a revisit to how all this is unfolded. And I'm sure if there was some interest in anyone contacting him, letting him know from that interview how things have kind of, was a huge landslide, basically, that nothing has been done. Just kind of, hoping and trying to pull through any kind of resources. Usually counties like that don't want the media and people to know they haven't been doing their job. And to kind of get the media involved, with Dr. Phil. And I would actually put it through a petition to request for the community to sign, saying they do not want the local police involved in handling the case anymore. They want all the evidence turned over to the FBI and make some really drastic moves in getting this move along and sending a message that there's zero tolerance with all of this that's been going on.
I agree with you, and that's why I asked Elaine if there was a petition out yet. And I think that someone, and it should be someone in their family, should get a petition started up. There's so many resources available for petitioning, and with the internet and with this case being so high profile, I think that we could convince the authorities to actually do a more thorough push to find justice for Dylan.
Well, and I would just ask them not to even involve the local police any longer. I would request for the FBI to be involved.
Right. Thanks for calling.
Say,
Oh, I'm getting a lot of callers tonight. Hi, you're on the air with Case to Case. Who's calling tonight?
Yeah, this is Rodney again. I lost you on my cell phone.
Okay, Rodney, do you have a comment?
I do. Two things. I want Mark to know, if he's listening, that I personally am going to spend the rest of my life trying to make sure he gets prosecuted as well. I don't know Elaine. I don't know Michael. I don't know Corey. I don't know a lot of those people. But I know that he's guilty. Most of us, all of us, know he's guilty. And the other thing I'm going to let him know is that I'm going to hold law enforcement's feet to the fire as a citizen, because I think they fucked up. I think they fucked this case up really bad. Excuse my language. But Mark needs to know that this is never going to go away, ever.
And I think
And
most people agree that this is not going to go away.
No, he'll be looking over his shoulder for the rest of his life. And I can tell you this much. Every crowd that I get into, every social occasion I go to, I subconsciously look for that man. Personally. That's how much hate I have for him, and I don't even know him. I know what he's done, but there's thousands of people that feel the same way I do.
I understand.
Mark, you just know this, Mark. You are not going to walk away from this. Get that, bud? I got to go. Thank you for letting me be on the show.
Thank you, caller. Okay, on that note, I just want to share with my listeners, everyone out there, I don't condone vigilante violence or anything of the sort, but I do agree that he should be looking over his shoulder until prosecution comes down on him. I have another call coming through right now. I'm going to answer it. You are on the air. Who is this?
This is Mark Redwine.
Oh, hello, Mark Redwine. Well, we have 3 minutes left in the show. I'd like to know what you have to say.
Well, I mean, I think that I disagree with a lot of what Elaine says. I'm certainly not running from her, law enforcement, or anybody else. The caller, Rodney, is probably the reason why the Sheriff's Department has added additional patrols to my house. The bottom line is, this isn't about me. This is about my son. And my son is still missing. And until we find his remains and have a better opportunity to determine his cause of death, I think that we're all talking in circles right now.
And do you mind sharing with the listeners, Mark? And again, I want to let everyone out here know, this is Mark Redwine. This is the father of slain child Dylan Redwine. Do you mind sharing with the listeners, what do you think happened to your son, sir?
I don't know what happened to my son. I have absolutely no idea what happened to my son. I have no idea where he's at or where his remains are at. What I can tell you is that he was very much alive when I went to run my errands that I had to do the morning that he disappeared, and he was last seen alive by me. So, I don't know what else I can say to you people. Obviously, the Sheriff's Department doesn't have any evidence to support a crime has been committed, or I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you on the phone right now.
I understand, Mark. And I have another question for you. Have you ever offered to take another polygraph test to clear your name?
I've not refused to take another polygraph test.
Have you ever offered?
I haven't offered, no.
Do you not agree that it would clear your name if you offered and took another attempt at taking a lie detector test?
Well, I don't know that I do agree with that, Chelsea, to be honest with you. I think that, taking a polygraph test is only a tool that is used by law enforcement, and in my opinion, that ship is sailing.
Okay, I guess we can agree with that it is just a tool, and it's not admissible in court. I only have 30 seconds left in the show, so I want to thank you for calling, and the next time I do a show on it, I want to invite you to come back and talk. Would you be willing to do that?
Well, I'll be honest with you, Chelsea. I don't know that this is a proper venue to have for this kind of thing, but, the fact is that I very much care about my son, and I very much, like everybody else, wants to know where he is, because if anything, he deserves to be laid to rest. And I'm a firm believer in that, and I don't think until we get to that point that anybody should be out pointing fingers at anybody, but that's my opinion.
Well, I want to thank you for calling in. Have a good night.
All right, you too.
All right, everybody, the show is ending. I have seconds before it cuts off, so thank you so much for tuning in. It got a little bit hairy there at the end when Mark called in, so I really wish we could have had more time with him, but we didn't. So until next week, guys, thanks for listening.